Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore a truly fascinating and honestly kind of unexpected intersection of science, microscopic biology, and human space exploration. When we think of space travel, we usually picture massive rockets, shiny metallic habitats, and the vast freezing vacuum of the cosmos. But today, we're going to look inward, at the tactile, almost clay-like, squishy biology inside our own bodies. Because it turns out, to conquer the macrocosm of space, we literally have to master the microcosm inside of us.
Okay, let's dive right into this and start with a fundamental question that's going to frame our whole journey today. What do microscopic gut bacteria have to do with the future of deep space travel? I know, it sounds like the setup for a weird science fiction novel, but answering this exact question is precisely why scientists study space microbes today. To really understand what they're looking for, we need to trace a story that starts deep inside our own stomachs and stretches all the way up into low Earth orbit.
Just to get a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about here, consider this number, 10 to the 18th power. That's a 1 with 18 zeros behind it. And that is the unfathomable number of microbes living inside you right this very second. Your body isn't just a single organism, it's this bustling, squishy, incredibly complex ecosystem all on its own. Millions of genes and thousands of microbial species are just thriving in your gastrointestinal tract, your mouth, your nose, your lungs. Forget about being an astronaut for a second. You're basically a walking, talking planet for these microscopic space cadets.
And this brings us to a really vital concept. When scientists talk about this community, they use the term microbiota. Basically, that's just the entire assemblage of microorganisms present in a specific environment, like the human gut. But here's the thing. These bacteria aren't just along for the ride. They're a highly dynamic community that actively trains our immune system and regulates our metabolism. And even more remarkably, they intricately communicate with our central nervous system through something called the gut-brain axis. They're basically sending chemical text messages back and forth to your brain all day long. Now think about just how much power these tiny passengers wield over our daily lives right here on Earth. Volatility in our microbiome affects pretty much everything. A healthy gut protects us from nasty infections and keeps our metabolism running smoothly, but disruptions in this squishy little ecosystem, well, they're heavily implicated in severe conditions like inflammatory bowel disease, diabetes, and obesity. And because of that gut-brain axis we just talked about, these microbes strongly influence our stress responses, our anxiety levels, and even depression. They literally impact how we feel and how we think. To truly underline just how incredible the power of these microbes is, consider a recent, groundbreaking study out of King's College London looking at Alzheimer's disease. Researchers found that they could actually transfer memory impairments to young, healthy animals simply by transplanting the gut microbiota from human Alzheimer's patients into them. The animals that receive these microbes produce significantly fewer new nerve cells in the hippocampus region of their brains. It's absolutely stunning. Our gut makeup plays a direct, causal role in complex neurological diseases. So, if these microbes have this much control over our physical and mental health in the cozy, stable environment of Earth, where we have nice natural gravity, normal circadian rhythms, and a magnetic field protecting us from cosmic radiation, what exactly happens when we leave? Well, this is exactly why scientists study space microbes so intently. When we put humans in low Earth orbit, we're taking this incredibly delicate microbial balance and throwing it into a hostile, alien environment defined by microgravity, intense radiation, and extreme physiological stress. And you can probably guess how this snowballs into a massive physiological and psychological problem for astronauts. The stakes of long-duration spaceflight go way beyond rocket science. The sheer stress of being in space disrupts that crucial gut-brain communication, which can lead directly to increased anxiety and depression, things you absolutely cannot afford when you're operating a spacecraft millions of miles from home. Plus, microgravity actually weakens the gastrointestinal barrier, which is essentially your gut's shield. And terrifyingly, it increases the pathogenic potential and antibiotic resistance of certain microbes. So, it's the ultimate recipe for a very bad stomachache in the worst possible place. But here's where we find a really tangible solution: probiotics. Specifically, scientists are looking at highly resilient spore-forming bacteria like Bacillus clausii. You can think of these guys as friendly, protective biological armor for the astronauts' internal ecosystems. By having astronauts take these highly beneficial bacteria, we can potentially restore balance to their gut microbiome, boost their immune function, and actively protect them against those space-mutated pathogens. But obviously, before we can rely on them for a mission to Mars, we need to know exactly how they behave in zero gravity. So how do we figure that out? Enter the SAP-1, or the S-Space Astrobiology Payload. This is a compact, completely self-contained, automated laboratory built specifically to study these probiotic microbes in low Earth orbit. It's kind of like a high-tech miniature clay wheel of science. The core of its design is this rotating platform that houses dormant bacteria, along with a pressurized nutrient tank, which basically allows scientists back on Earth to conduct complex biological experiments entirely by remote control, right in the vacuum of space.
The way this hardware actually automates the science is super cool, and it plays out almost like a tactile robotic recipe. First, incredibly resilient dry bacterial spores are stored in these little transparent chambers called biowells. Once the payload is safely in orbit, the system pumps in a pressurized nutrient broth to wake them up. Then, the platform spins to induce what's called mechanical convection, which is just a fancy high-tech way of saying it thoroughly stirs the squishy culture. Finally, the system measures the optical density, shining a light right through the liquid to see how cloudy it is, which tells researchers exactly how fast the bacteria are growing.
Now, one of the biggest challenges of doing this in microgravity is that liquids just don't behave normally. They don't settle, they just form these big floating blobs. To handle this, the hardware uses electronic liquid gates called solenoid valves, along with those transparent biowells. And to prevent the growing bacterial colonies from lumping together or sticking to the walls of the biowells, which would totally ruin those optical measurements, the platform uses a very specific jittery rotation. This constant sloshing action makes sure the culture remains uniformly mixed, keeping the bacteria healthy and the data crystal clear.
And the engineering behind how all of this is packaged is just wild. This entire rotating platform is housed inside a hermetically sealed chamber that is incredibly compact. It's designed to fit into a standard 1U CubeSat form factor, meaning the whole thing is just 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters, about the size of a large grapefruit. Despite being so tiny, this sealed chamber maintains Earth-like pressure and uses built-in heaters to keep the temperature right around a cozy 35 degrees Celsius for optimal bacterial growth. And it does all of this while consuming less than 5 watts of power. That is literally less energy than a standard LED light bulb.
But my absolute favorite part of this whole payload is this one brilliant engineering trick. How do you measure the cloudiness of a liquid in space when the air and the liquid are all mixed up together in a floating zero-gravity foam? Well, the SAP-1 solves this by using its rotating platform to create artificial gravity. By spinning at a constant velocity right before taking a measurement, it applies centrifugal acceleration. This forces all the liquid culture to the far end of the biowell, separating it cleanly from the air. It's such a smart workaround that guarantees a pristine, accurate reading every single time.
It's honestly amazing to realize that the grand ambitions of human spaceflight hinge so heavily on these entities we can't even see with the naked eye. By studying how these resilient probiotics behave inside payloads like the SAP-1, scientists aren't just doing abstract biology. They are quite literally engineering the biological armor that will allow humans to survive the extreme stresses of deep space. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to chew on. If mastering our microscopic inner universe is the prerequisite for surviving the cosmic outer universe, what other earthly secrets hold the key to humanity's expansion into the stars? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep looking up and inward.